This is Wednesday, April 15th, as we begin the Outsiders with the regular class. If you have... if you have any missing work, make sure that you get it to me. And then also medicine, make sure you get it turned into the nurse by Friday. Let's see, we're good to go from there. We're going to get into the book. Before we get into Outsiders, this guy, Paul Newman, they're going to start off the book talking about him. He is an actor from the 1960s through today, but he's suffering from a bad case of death right now. You are familiar with him through the movie Cars, if you saw the one that had starred, Cars. That car. Doc. He was the old grumpy car that was the old fast racer. That was the voice of Paul Newman. And the reason that Doc was not in Cars 2 is because Paul Newman, the actor, died. Which really limited his ability to do voice work. Also, if you eat salad or your parents eat salad, he also started a salad dressing company called Newman's Own that has his face on it. And so you might recognize him from that too. But it's going to start off talking about Paul Newman. Excuse me again. So I'm going to give you guys a heads up. That's what I was going to get to. Oh, and it's also starting off in first person, which means it is told from who? The main character talking to us. And so you won't find out the main character's name until we get a little bit into the book. Chapter 1. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight and the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough, and I don't. But I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair and greenish-gray eyes. And I wish they were more gray, because I hate most guys that have green eyes, but I have to be content with what I have. My hair's longer than a lot of boys wear theirs, squared off in back and long at the front and sides, but I'm a greaser, and most of my neighborhood rarely bothers to get a haircut. Besides, I look better with long hair. I had a long walk home and no company, but I usually loan it anyway, for no reason except that I like to watch movies undisturbed, so I can get into them and live with the actors. When I see a movie with someone, it's kind of uncomfortable, like having someone read your book over your shoulder. I'm different anyway. I mean, my second oldest brother, Soda, who's 16 going on 17, well, he never cracks a book at all. And my oldest brother, Daryl, who we call Derry, works too long and hard to be interested in a story or drawing a picture, so I'm not like them. And nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way I do. So for a while there, I thought I was the only person in the world that did. So I loaned it. Soda tries to understand at least, which is more than Derry does, but then Soda's different from anybody. He understands everything, almost. Like he's never hollering at me all the time the way Derry is, or treating me as if I was 6 instead of 14. I love Soda more than I've ever loved anyone, even Mom and Dad. He's always happy-go-lucky and grinning, while Derry's hard and firm and rarely grins at all. But then Derry's gone through a lot in his 20 years, grown up too fast. Soda Pop will never grow up at all. I don't know which way is the best, but I'll find out one of these days. Anyway, I went on walking home, thinking about the movie, and then suddenly wishing I had some company. Greasers can't walk alone too much, or they'll get jumped, or someone will come by and scream, "Greaser!" at them, which doesn't make you feel too hot, if you know what I mean. We get jumped by the socials. I'm not sure how you spell it, but it's the abbreviation for the socials, the jet set, the West Side rich kids. It's like the term greaser, which is used to class all us boys on the east side. We're poorer than the socials in the middle class, and I reckon we're wilder too. I mean, not like the socials who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts for kicks, get editorials in the paper, make a public disgrace one day, and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things, drive old souped-up cars, and hold up gas stations, have a gang fight once in a while. I don't mean I do things like that. Derry would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. I mean, since Mom and Dad were killed in an auto wreck, the three of us get to stay together only as long as we behave. So, Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can, and we're careful not to get caught when we can't. I only mean that most greasers do things like that. Just like we wear our hair long and dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out and wear leather jackets and tennis shoes or boots. Now, I'm not saying that either socias or greasers are better. That's just the way things are. And I could have waited to go to the movies until Dairy or Soda Pop got off work. They would have gone with me or driven me there or walked along. Although Soda just can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie, and they bore Dairy to death. Dairy thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I could have gotten one of the gang to come along. One of the 4 boys Dairy and Soda and I have grown up with and consider family. We're almost as close as brothers. I mean, when you grow up in a tight-knit neighborhood like ours, you get to know each other real well. I thought about it. I could have called Derry. He would have come by on his way home and picked me up. Or 2-Bit Matthews, one of our gang, would have come to get me in his car if I'd asked him. But sometimes I just don't use my head. It drives my brother Derry nuts when I do stuff like that, because I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades, have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking. Hang on. Pause there. Let's go through the group that they're talking about. Hang on. Yeah. Oh, Mark, stop. There we go. They're talking about are the greasers. There we go. If you've seen the movie Grease, John Travolta with the singing and the dancing and the car and the grease lightning, the black leather jackets and the hair all greased back, that's the greasers that they're talking about there, sort of on the hoodlum side. And then the group that keeps trying to go against them and beat them up and be mean are the... Question. Nice one. And what does SOCH stand for? Socials. And so the socias were the rich kids who dressed a bit more preppily and stuff like that. So he's going through it. Which side does the speaker belong to?
Greasers.
The greasers. I even found a picture of a Soch dog. Looks like he was adorable. We're going to talk about a Madras outfit here coming up in a minute. Madras is this colorful, like rainbowy check pattern. Hollister, 3 or 4 years ago, this was a real popular style they had going on. It sort of came back. And so I had a bunch of kids, while we were reading The Outsiders, actually wearing the Madras shorts. But they sort of faded back out since then. But that's the Madras that they're going to talk about. And then this red Corvair is going to pull up here in just a moment. It's a nice convertible. It's one that the rich kids were driving. So that's what they're going to talk about, this red Corvair, in a second. Just want to give you... So many issues. There we go. Let's see if I left off. Right. Now, I about decided I didn't like it so much, though, when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me. I was almost 2 blocks from home then, so I started walking a little faster. I'd never been jumped, but I'd seen Johnny after 4 socias got hold of him, and it wasn't pretty. I mean, Johnny was scared of his own shadow after that. Johnny was 16 then. And I knew it wasn't any use, though. The fast walking, I mean. Even before the Corvair pulled up beside me and 5 socias got out. I got pretty scared. Now, I'm kind of small for 14, even though I have a good build, and those guys are bigger than me. I automatically hitched my thumbs in my jeans and slouched, wondering if I could get away if I made a break for it. Hitching your thumbs, it's when you take your thumbs, and you can either put them in the belt area in that little front, or you can put them down in your pockets. But it's when you have your sort of hands dangled to the side and you do the little slouchy, I'm too cool, you can't really do it. And you have that little slouchy look with the hands out to the side. I remember Johnny, his face all cut up and bruised, and I remembered how he cried when we found him, half conscious in the corner lot. Johnny had it awful rough at home. It took a lot to make him cry. I mean, I was sweating something fierce, although I was cold. I could feel my palms getting clammy and the perspiration running down my back. I get like that when I'm real scared. I glanced around for a pop bottle or a stick or something. Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off 4 guys with a busted pop bottle, but there was nothing. So I stood there like a bump on a log while they surrounded me. I don't use my head. They walked around, slowly, silently, smiling. And the busted pop bottle, not the plastic one that you get like the screw off top, because that would not do much if you got into a fight. You would just bop, 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 bop someone on the head. They were talking about a glass one that you can hit on the ground and shatter it, so it has like jagged edges, and you go stab, stab, bleed, die. And so that's what you're talking about, the busted pop bottle. It's the glass, not the plastic. I don't want you guys trying to get into a fight with a plastic bottle like, why isn't this working? I saw it in the book once. And one where it just bounces off people.
Wouldn't it be like, don't get in fight at all?
Well, that too, if you want to. Hey, Grease, one said in an over-friendly voice. We're going to do you a favor, Greaser. We're going to cut all that long, greasy hair off. He had on a Madras shirt. I'll put that back up there. A Madras shirt. One of them laughed and cussed me out in a low voice. I couldn't think of anything to say. I mean, there just isn't a whole lot you can say while waiting to get mugged, so I kept my mouth shut. Need a haircut, Greaser? The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket, flipped the blade open. I finally thought of something to say. No! I was backing up, away from that knife. Of course, I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms and legs pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees and my elbows, and if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I could smell English leather shaving lotion and stale tobacco, and I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything. I was scared so bad I was wishing I would. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Well, then they tightened up on me, and the one on my chest slugged me a couple times, so I lay still, swearing at him between gasps. The blade was held against my throat. How'd you like that haircut to begin just below the chin? Well, it occurred to me then that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming for soda, dairy, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth, and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting the blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttered curse and got slugged again, and they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut him up, for Pete's sake, shut him up!" And then there were shouts and the pounding of feet, and the socias jumped up and left me lying there, gasping. I lay there wondering what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. Well, then someone had me under the armpits and was hauling me to my feet. It was Derry. "You all right, pony boy?" He was shaking me, and I wished he'd stop. I was dizzy enough anyway. I could tell it was Derry, though, partly because of the voice, and partly because Derry's always rough with me without meaning to be. When the socials are beating him up, he mentions he can smell two things. What are the two things he can smell? Tobacco and the English leather shaving lotion, which is like cologne. I can't bring in the tobacco, but I did bring in English leather shaving lotion, which is like a little cologne.
Oh, is it the stuff like you pat on your face?
It is. Have you seen Home Alone?
Yeah.
You put it on there, just like a whole pat, like, ah, screams. Same stuff. And so what I've done is I've put a little bit of it onto little cotton balls. So I'm going to come around and give you a chance to smell them. Just sort of use, I've been told it smells like grandpa's or barbershops and hotels. If you can imagine, it's hopefully strong enough. This is what he's having to inhale while they're in the process of trying to cut him and kill him and all that fun stuff. It was a cologne, so dudes wore this in an attempt to attract the ladies. So if you smell it, dudes actually try to, get the chicks to dig them by wearing this.
It's like ants. Ants have like their sense. It's like the ant stuff. Like when you can smell it. No, that's what it no, it was too
I don't even have a tongue.
It does smell like hotel bathrooms.
For those of you at home, there you go. Give a little smell. Good stuff. The other thing that they mention in there is when they're holding him down, they pull something and hold it against him, which makes it kind of scary.
Oh wait, the shaving.
Nice. They talked about the knife, specifically a switchblade, which is different than a normal knife, and I brought one in so I can demonstrate for you. It's fake, so that's okay. I wouldn't have a student with witnesses. Come on now. The way it works with the switchblade is it has a spring-loaded knife on the inside of the handle and a little button on the side. Be serious. And so, whenever you're needing to stab someone, you hit the little button on the side, blade pops out, you do whatever stabbing you have to do, and then the little button on the side retracts the blade. Sometimes they're really nice ones, you hit the little button, it goes back on its own. Other times you have to hit the button and like push it against something, and then it closes. You just don't want to push it against your hand to close it, and then it goes through. The problem with this type of switchblade was that typically guys carry them, and guys tend to goof off and horseplay and keep them in their pockets. And when your friend comes up and ninja kicks you in the pocket and hits the button, it would go off in the pocket and cause lots of pain. So they redesigned it and came up with a different one called a rainbow blade. And the way the rainbow blade works, as opposed to shooting straight out that way,
Oh, I have one of those.
this blade, instead of shooting out this way,
What if they have pits?
comes up that way. So that way, if it's in your pocket and a friend hits it, it won't stab you in the leg so that you don't have to worry about dying. It'll just sort of pop out to the side and then be okay. And then you can, comb your hair as needed. And since I've had kids ask, there is one that is called a butterfly knife, and the butterfly knife is not spring-loaded. It is the one where you'll see them when they flip the movie like that when they do the stab. It's just for
Oh, those are pretty cool.
but it gives a sound. It's called a butterfly knife. When you open them, it flips around, sort of like flies on little butterfly wings. And that's what you'll see in the movies when they're like, oh yeah, you want to fight him? Like that, and they stab a bunch of guys. Much better. I apparently don't stab enough people. I apologize.
You stab beer.
No, because there's one part that's not sharp.
It depends. You have a dull side and a sharp side, unless you get the really fancy ones that have a double sharp side. Then you have to practice a lot. You just go, cut your hand, cut your hand, cut your hand. You want to die? It doesn't really work as well. But those are the knives they're going to be talking about in the story because they play a big role with the whole idea of stabbing each other. Thank you for letting me stab you and not dying. Good job.
And the scary thing is, I was more scared than her. And my feet were coming in.
The scary thing is,
You can hear James yell. I can hear James yell.
only one has a different
That's not going to
I'm okay. Quit shaking me, Gary. I'm okay. He stopped instantly. I'm sorry. He wasn't really. Derry isn't ever sorry for anything he does. It seems funny to me that he should look just exactly like my father and act exactly the opposite from him. My father was only 40 when he died, and he looked 25. And a lot of people thought Derry and Dad were brothers instead of father and son. But they only looked alike. My father was never rough with anyone without meaning to be. Derry is 6'2", broad-shouldered and muscular. He has dark brown hair that kicks out in front and a slight cowlick in the back, just like Dad's. But Derry's eyes are his own. He's got eyes that are like two pieces of pale blue-green ice. They've got a determined set to them, like the rest of them. He looks older than 20. Tough, cool, smart. He'd be real handsome if his eyes weren't so cold. He doesn't understand anything that's not plain, hard fact. But he uses his head. I sat down again, rubbing my cheek where I've been slugged the most. Derry jammed his fists in his pockets. They didn't hurt you too bad, did they? They did. I was smarting and aching, and my chest was sore, and I was so nervous my hands were shaking, and I wanted to start bawling, but you just don't say that to Derry. By the way, bawling, not referring to bawling, but crying. Nice of them. I'm okay. Soda Pop came loping back. By then I'd figured that all the noise I'd heard was the gang coming to rescue me. He dropped down beside me, examining my head. You got cut up a little, huh, Tony boy? I only looked at him blankly. I did? He pulled out a handkerchief, wet the end of it with his tongue, and pressed it gently against the side of my head. You're bleeding like a stuck pig. I am? Look. He showed me the handkerchief, reddened as if by magic. Did they pull a blade on you? I remembered the voice. Need a haircut, greaser? The blade must have slipped while he was trying to shut me up. Yeah. Soda's handsomer than anyone else I know. I mean, not like Derry. Soda's movie star kind of handsome. The kind that people stop on the street to watch go by. He's not as tall as Derry, and he's a little slimmer, but he has a finely drawn, sensitive face that somehow manages to be reckless and thoughtful at the same time. He's got dark gold hair that he combs back, long and silky and straight. And in the summer, the sun bleaches it to a shining wheat gold. His eyes are dark brown, lively, dancing, recklessly laughing eyes that can be gentle and sympathetic one moment and blazing with anger the next. He has Dad's eyes, but Soda is one of a kind. He can get drunk in a drag race or dancing without ever getting near alcohol. In our neighborhood, it's rare to find a kid who doesn't drink once in a while, but Soda never touches a drop. He doesn't need to. He gets drunk on just plain living, and he understands everybody. He looked at me more closely. I looked away hurriedly because, if you want to know the truth, I was starting to bawl. I knew I was as white as I felt, and I was shaking like a leaf. Soda just put his hand on my shoulder. "Easy, pony boy. They ain't gonna hurt you no more." I know, I said. But the ground began to blur. I felt hot tears running down my cheeks. I brushed them away impatiently. "I'm just a little spooked, that's all." I drew a quivering breath and quit crying. You just don't cry in front of Derry. I mean, not unless you're hurt like Johnny had been that day we found him in the vacant lot. Compared to Johnny, I wasn't hurt at all. Soda rubbed my hair. "You're an okay kid, pony." I had to grin at him. Soda can make you grin no matter what. I guess it's because he's always grinning so much himself. "You're crazy, Soda. Out of your mind." Derry looked as if he'd like to knock our heads together. "You're both nuts." Soda merely cocked one eyebrow, a trick he picked up from Two-Bit. It seems to run in the family. That cocked eyebrow, it's where the little eyebrow pops up to one side. What's his name? Thank you. When he goes into Spanish mode in the second one, that's when his eyebrow cocks up all the time. Zach?
Who named them?
Who named the kids?
Yeah.
Their parents. There's magical beings that brought them into life.
Soda Bob.
Yep, they are. And they'll talk about that. Derry stared at him for a second, then cracked a grin. Soda Pop isn't afraid of him like everyone else and enjoys teasing him. I'd just as soon tease a full-grown grizzly, but for some reason, Derry seems to like being teased by Soda. Our gang had chased the Socias to their car and heaved rocks at them. They came running toward us now. 4 lean, hard guys. They were all as tough as nails and looked it. I'd grown up with them, and they accepted me, even though I was younger, because I was Derry and Soda's kid brother, and I kept my mouth shut good. Steve Randall was 17, tall and lean, with thick, greasy hair kept combed in complicated swirls. He was cocky, smart, and Soda's best buddy since grade school. Steve's specialty was cars. He could lift a hubcap quicker and more quietly than anyone in the neighborhood, but he also knew cars upside down and backward, and he could drive anything on wheels. He and Soda worked at the same gas station, Steve part-time and Soda full-time. Their station got more customers than any other one in town. Whether that was because Steve was so good with cars or because Soda attracted girls like honey draws flies, I couldn't tell you. I liked Steve only because he was Soda's best friend. He didn't like me. He thought I was a tag-along and a kid. Soda always took me with him when they went places if they weren't taking girls, and that bugged Steve. It wasn't my fault. Soda always asked me. I didn't ask him. Soda doesn't think I'm a kid. With Steve, it talked about him lifting hubcaps. Do you guys know what a hubcap is?
Yeah, it's on a wheel.
Yeah, it's on the car.
Cars.
And lifting hubcaps is when you steal them. Now, hubcaps are not nearly as nice. This is a plastic one I found on the side of the road when running for cross country. But they used to be metal and nice, like rims are now on a car. And you could steal them by just taking a screwdriver and popping them off. And if you were an up-and-coming hoodlum, you could make your money by going and stealing car hubcaps. And it was called lifting them because they were close to the ground. And then you would have to lift them when you stole them. So they called it lifting hubcaps. And so you'd take those and have 4 of them and put them in your jacket and go like, "Hey, you want to buy some hubcaps?" You open your coat and hubcaps just sitting right there. I mean, kind of jangle in your hand. Jangle, 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 jangle. But they made really cool necklaces. But that's, they talk about him stealing. Steve is not necessarily a good guy. He likes to steal. Two-Bit Matthews was the oldest of the gang and the wisecracker of the bunch. He was about 6 feet tall, stocky in build, and very proud of his long, rusty-colored sideburns. You guys know what sideburns are?
Yeah, little Elvis.
I got 'em right here.
He had gray eyes and a wide grin, and he couldn't stop making funny remarks to save his life. Couldn't shut up, that guy. He always had to get his 2 bits worth in, hence his name. Even his teachers forgot his real name was Keith, and we hardly remembered he had one. Life was one big joke to Two-Bit. He was famous for shoplifting and his black-handled switchblade, which he couldn't have acquired without his first talent. And he was always smarting off to the cops. You really couldn't help it. Everything he said was so irresistibly funny that he just had to let the police in on it to brighten up their dull lives. That's the way he explained it to me. He liked fights, blondes, and for some unfathomable reason, school. He was still a junior at 18 and a half, and he never learned anything. He just went for kicks. I liked him real well because he kept us laughing at ourselves as well as other things. He reminded me of Will Rogers. Maybe it was the grin. Not Will Rogers, the choir teacher, but Will Rogers, the cowboy comedian. So different, Will Rogers. If I had to pick the real character of the game, it'd be Dallas Winston, Dally. I used to like to draw his picture when he was in a dangerous mood, for then I could get his personality down in a few lines. He had an elfish face with high cheekbones and a pointed chin, small, sharp animal teeth, and ears like a lynx. His hair was almost white. It was so blonde. He didn't like haircuts or hair oil either, so it fell over his forehead in wisps and kicked out the back in tufts and curled behind his ears and along the nape of his neck. His eyes were blue, blazing ice, cold with a hatred of the whole world. Dally had spent 3 years on the wild side of New York and been arrested at the age of 10. He was tougher than the rest of us. Tougher, colder, meaner. The shade of difference that separates a greaser from a hood wasn't present in Dally. He was as wild as the boys in the downtown outfits, like Tim Shepard's gang. Your homework? Not to read the book. Just to bring it back tomorrow. Because we're going to read it tomorrow, and there's big things that are going to start happening. If you read ahead, I'm going to start yelling at you, because you're going to tell other people and bad stuff. So do your best to not read as tough as that's going to be on you. Carl?